If you're anything like me, and over the years you've bought enough gear where you could have bought the house you are in right now about 10 times over, this is not going to be the video for you, because it will make your wallet cry, as it has been making my wallet cry looking through this issue of Total Guitar from January 2012. There's Slash, our boy, on the front there. And the reason that it's made my wallet cry is looking at the prices on the gear over the last 13 years and how much it's actually changed. So I've been reading this magazine since I found it after moving house a couple of years back. It's just been sitting here, and the one thing that did stand out is the price on the gear then compared to now. So we are going to take a little trip down memory lane. I'm not looking to ruffle anyone's feathers. I don't want to piss off any retailers or anything like that. This is literally just a look at how much it was then compared to now. Obviously we know inflation has a factor, just everything just goes up in price, doesn't it? The shipping, the cost of the materials, etc, etc, etc. So we are going to make ourselves cry. Also, I do apologise, I've got a bit of a chest infection at the time of recording this, and it's turned into a little bit of a cold, so I may sniffle. It's the cold, not the tears from the gear prices. If you were like me and you are in your mid-30s when you were younger, what's the first thing you used to do when you got an Argos catalogue back home? It was go from the back to the front, because that's where all the toys were. Actually, that's what we'll do. We will start at literally the back. So I know the light is shining there. Hang on, let me move it. 1 sec. Let me see what I can do here. Stuff it. That's the best I'm going to get it. So if you look here, this says it's the Korg Pandora Mini. I'm pretty sure my friend Keith had one of these, and I don't remember it. So we're going to have a look to see what that is like nowadays. I think I've seen one in here as well, actually. Korg Pandora Mini. Terrible spelling, my bad. Music Radar back in July 2011. This was £95. £95. I'm pretty sure that was a lot of money back then. I can't remember. But you can actually buy one for $129.99 refurbished, which is pretty funny. And there's one there in the US for $180, including tax or plus tax. I can never work out the US currency and tax and all that stuff. So that's 30 to 40 pounds more pre-owned 13 years later, 14 years later even. Okay, so we have arrived at the first set of pages here. We've got GAC, Guitar Amp and Keyboard Center. And the first thing that grabs me is the Fender Modern Player series. I mentioned that series of guitars. Can you see it there? I mentioned that series of guitars in one of my earlier videos. You can't get them new anymore, but back then, for example, the Telecasters were $337. I remember the Jaguar, actually. The Jaguar was really nice with the two P90s on it. Let's see how much these are going for pre-owned, shall we? Because I know you can't really get them new anymore. Fender Modern Player. Let's look at the Thinline Tele Deluxe. I had two of these, I think. There you go. So, £337 in 2012. And pre-owned now, they're going, as you can see here, for over £450. So that was a bit nuts. That is a little bit nuts. But I remember these being great. I had, as a matter of fact, I had two of the thin lines and I had one of the standard Telecaster Pluses. But it wasn't standard, but you know what I mean. Let's look at a little bit of Gretsch action, shall we? Let's go for a double jet. Let's see how much a double jet is now compared to back then. Okay, so Gretsch have obviously now got all these weird numbers and whatnot, but that is it right there, I believe, the double jet with Bigsby. Let's have a look here for music. Oh, obviously they're not available anymore. Of course they're not. 424 equivalent models are going about 450, so that's not so bad. So that's fine. Gretsch, that's not too bad in terms of prices then versus now. Congratulations on keeping up your value, even with a slight peak in inflation. Okay, so there was a business called Hard to Find Guitar and Music Technology, htfr.com. And they were selling a Line 6 Pod HD for £339. Dunlop Crybaby, £98. So actually, that's a good shout. Let's have a look at Crybaby actually. But what I'll do is I'll put the exact model in on this one, which is the GCB95F. GCB95F. Oh, there you go. That goes from about £130, call it, up from £98. That's not so bad, I suppose. This one's actually really interesting. The LTD TE202. If you can see that there. But this one was back then £419. Let's see what we're going with today. 13 years later, boyo. There's one here for £250. So this one is, you know, it's just roughly half as this search is not going well, is it? Oh, here's a good one. The Squier J Mascis Jazzmaster. If you can see it there. Can you see it? Yeah. You can see it. Cool. So, I'm pretty sure this hasn't changed. The Squier J Mascis has been a staple for a long time. Well, yeah, it's £419 back. Sorry, £430 back then, and it's about £450 now. So yeah, that tracks. Okay, so this one's going to be fun, right? This is Thomann, and they had back then used to do like 2 pages of hot deals. And man, they've got some stuff here. This is going to be a good one to try and go through. I'm going to put this here like a music book now. I'll make sure I take photos of the listing as well. But the first thing that we are going to look at, let's have a look. Epiphone Les Paul Standard. So, in ebony, obviously. Because I think that was the cheapest one, if I remember correctly. So obviously the Les Paul Standard has changed over X amount of time. It's not the same beast that it is now that it was then. However, the Epiphone Les Paul Standard in January 2012, might I add, was yeah, the Epiphone Les Paul Standard was £254 back in January 2012, and now on Thomann on the same website they're going for £469. That's almost double. It's really weird because it's just all painted black, and Thomann have said it's a AA flamed maple top. Okay, so back in 2012, this had a mahogany and alder body, apparently. Mahogany neck, rosewood fretboard, trapezoid inlays, all pretty standard stuff. This is the Inspired by Gibson collection, so it is a little bit different, but I'm pretty sure it's all mahogany. Yeah, it's all mahogany. That AA flame maple top is daft. I don't know why, what, where, what's the point, I don't know. Now, this one hurts my heart because I've got one up there. It's a Gibson SG Standard. So this one right now, as of today, £1,275. Would you like to know how much that was in January 2012? That's right, it was £860. That's mind-blowing how expensive that's got. Okay, so we've had an Epiphone, we've had a Gibson. What else can we have a look at here? Honestly, some of these prices hurt my head. It's funny because there's a Fender Standard Precision bass in here from 2011. And it was £459, made in Mexico. And obviously now we've got the new Indonesian range, which are $499 or $599, I can't remember. I think it's $499. $549. It sort of tracks, but it is made in a different country. That one was Mexico, this one is made in Indonesia, so I'm not sure how that balances out there in terms of the price. Another one, let's have a look at a Music Man Stingray. I'm not picking out Thomann here, it's just they've got loads here. And Thomann, I think, were one of the cheaper ones, actually. So, this Music Man Stingray back then was, wait for it, 1583, and now they're over £2,000. But obviously now we've got the Sterling stuff. The Sterling Rays cost, the top end of the Sterling Rays cost the same as what a normal Music Man Stingray cost back then in 2011, 2012. I had a Music Man Stingray, so that hurts my brain. We're going to move away from Thomann now, because otherwise I'm going to be here all day on this one page. Well, 2 pages. But thanks for the Nostalgia, so man. Yeah, I've just found an ad here for Merchant City Music. And we'll have a look what we can see. So there's a Fender Standard Telecaster, as we know, the Mexican ones back then. But now the Standard is Indonesian. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put in Fender Telecaster. Yeah, so Fender Standard Series now are $499. Back then they were $382, but again they were made in Mexico, and they came with a Fender gig bag. Do these come with a gig bag? Let's check. Why are you not letting me read more? Case gig bag then. There we go. So we're in a different country. We're paying £200 more, and it doesn't even come with a gig bag. Yeah, it's worth mentioning. Strat 382 as well. Fret King guitars. I remember those. What was it? I think I tried an Eclat, Fret King Eclat. They were fantastic guitars. Really, really good guitars. Back then they were $11.99. I played that festival. Beach Break Live. That was fun. Oh, here's a fun one. Andertons. Now then. Okay. Obviously I don't mean to make fun of the Andertons guys. They're just massive, massive, massive. So this is going to be interesting. And the first thing I've seen absolutely hurts my heart, because I remember buying one, and it's the Gibson Les Paul Jr. I had a white one because I wanted to be Billy Joe Armstrong, but hey ho. Super cool new gloss colours, USA made. £549. What happened, guys? What happened? That is the price, not far off of, I think, an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. now. We don't talk about these 100th anniversary ones. Okay, so this one had a gloss finish, which I'm assuming is nitro, and now $12.99 with a hard case. So that's more than double. For the simplest guitar known to man, it has literally more than doubled. Now they're throwing a hard case. There was no hard case back then. I know because I had one. The Gibson Classic Custom Les Pauls. I don't know if anybody remembers those. But now pre-owned, people ask for, I think upwards of £2,500 for those, because they think they're customs. They're not customs. But let's actually take a look at them, actually, because they were really, really nice. As I'm pretty sure people can attest to now with the new diamond inlays on the new Epiphones and the customs. That diamond, split diamond inlay. People love them. And it obviously adds a lot of value. Probably talking crap at the minute, but hey ho. There we go. Yeah, $13.99 they were. Yeah, Music Radar, $13.99 they said they were. And these were Les Paul customs with rosewood, I think, fretboards. No, it was kind of like Richlight, actually. But it was a nitro finish as well. So, yeah, there is that. I'll accept people still want £2,000 for them, even though they've got Richlight on them. People moan about Richlight, and then they're selling on buying guitars for £2,000 with Richlight. Make up your minds. I think we've looked at enough guitars now. Let's find some pedals and maybe amps to look at as well. Let's have a loop at the Boss RC Loopers from PMT back then. Okay, the RC3 is no longer in production by the looks of it. Back then, the RC3 was 165. The RC5 is now 175, so that tracks. That's actually pretty good. The RC30, again, I doubt it's even still going. No, they're out. They don't go anymore, man. No one wants those anymore, but you can get them for 129. They were 239 back then. I'm assuming that's pre-owned. Yep, that's pre-owned. So that tracks. That absolutely tracks. And then is the 300. Back then, £399. And yeah, second hand, 175 to 300. Condition dependent if it works, I'm assuming. But yeah, that tracks. I mean, the modern day equivalent would be the 5s, I think, or 500s. Yeah, and the 500s are still cheaper now than what the 300s were then. So again, Boss just being the working man's gear. As always, I cannot argue with them in any way, shape or form for that. Boss, you are legends, we love you. What's your favourite Boss pedal ever? Let me know in the comments below. I like the Power Stack. Okay, we are at Nevada Music in Total Guitar, January 2012, and there's a good couple of amps and pedals on here, so this is where we're going to stay. Going to try and stick with things I know that we can get new now, and there are a few things here. So we've got the TC Electronics Polytune first of all. Yep, the Polytune 3, £59, £59, £59. Quite easily one of the best and most reliable tuners on the market, and back then it was £69. Let's have a look at the combo drive from Boss. So the Boss BC2 combo drive, I'm assuming is discontinued. They're going for about £85-90, and back then it was about £85. And now one of my personal favourites, the Electro Harmonix Big Muff. That's not how you spell big. So yeah, nowadays 85 odd pounds. Back then, £59. There is a difference there. Let's have a look at some tube amps. It is the Fender Hot Rod DeVille 410. I don't think these are in production anymore. No, £369 pre-owned. What is that? That's PMT. Much less than half, but it is pre-owned. That's the 212. This is the 412. The 212 version was 857. But there's a Mark IV Hot Rod DeVille 212 for 1,044, and back then they were 857. So yeah, there's a definite increase there. £1,200 from GAC, £1,200 from Gear for Music, and these are the 212s. Remember now, the 412s back then were 939, but these are the 212s for 857. I know I said I wouldn't, but I've gone back to Thomann because they've got so many amp options and pedal options that we can look at here. Some of these are actually like discontinued though, but let's start off here. We got a Boss TU3. So the Boss TU3 is probably, or the Boss TU tuner in general, is probably the most well-sold guitar tuner of all time. Surely they can keep the price in check. That's a new £90 maybe. How much is it on GAC? 85. Yeah, back then they were £68. The Flashback 1. Now, in here it's £120. Here on Amazon, the Flashback 2 is £100. Yeah, so it's actually cheaper new now for the TC Electronic Flashback 2 than it was then for the Flashback 1. But I think back then the Flashback 1 was like, whoa, that was the delay pedal to have. And I do remember it being pretty damn good. Marshall. Not even sure if these were British made back then, not that it matters. But the JVM 410H. Now, I had a 205C, but I wanted the 410. And brand new, these are 1150 to 13. There's one in Anderton's in stock. 1150. There you go. And back then they were £1,007. Fantastic amps. I can't say enough nice things about the JVMs. This is a fun one, and I'll end on this one. So this specifically is the Engel Powerball 2. E6452. There you go. I spelled Engel wrong. My bad. Now that's very interesting. That is very, very interesting. Across the board, we're looking at 1,500 with a foot switch as a bundle. Head alone 1,400, and here they were 1,377. It's worth mentioning as well, if you wanted a set of Vernier ball slinkies, they were less than £5 back then. And they're a bit more than that now. So, what is the overall takeaway from this? Well, for me, it looks like some companies can keep their gear at a certain price and others can't, and that's the new prices. We're not talking about the pre-owned stuff now. The new stuff. So if you look at the stuff that we saw from the likes of Fender, that we saw from the likes of Gibson, they have gone quite extortionately priced, and I'm including Epiphone in that as well, when you are comparing it to how it was 13 years ago. Whereas you've got other companies like Engel, for example, and even Marshall. Their prices haven't really changed. Now, I think I know why. If Marshall back then was being manufactured in the UK, right? I am looking at my computer screen now. Marshall back then was manufactured in the UK, and the Engel was manufactured in Germany. It's going to cost a lot less on the UK market to get those products. as my guess. Whereas you look at the Fender stuff, you look at the Gibson stuff, that stuff is going to cost a lot more to bring into the UK in the first place. But why is the price gone up so much for the US based stuff, whereas the European based stuff has not? I don't know, I am not a financial expert when it comes to things like inflation and import duties and all that shite. That's not my field in any way, shape or form. But ultimately, when you've seen price rises on the US gear hit about the 100% and more mark, and then you've got the European gear, again, being bought in the European market, the UK and Europe. We're not getting into a Brexit debate, then it just baffles me how some companies can keep the cost at that. Have things changed that much on that side of the pond over the last 13 years and not in the UK and Europe when it comes to things like the labour costs, when it comes to the component costs and shipping costs and all that? I mean, there were some fluctuations in the prices of the pedals as well, I remember, but they're small things to me. I think maybe with the exception of Electro Harmonics, the pedals that we looked at were all made in maybe the Far East. You got Boss, I think was one we looked at. But yeah, some of that US made stuff, and it doesn't matter if it's US made, it doesn't make it better or worse, that type of thing. But they are the legacy brands. The prices on the legacy brands then versus now are blown my mind, and it's because I've owned products from those brands over the years before 2012 up until now. So yeah, maybe I should have just kept out of all that stuff and sold it now. Would have been easier to buy a house, I imagine. Anyway guys, thanks very much for listening to me rabble on about gear prices. Make sure you come back next week to see the results of the video we did last week, to see if we could tell what pickup was being used if we took out the attack of the Note. Really long-winded, but have a listen, have a watch, you'll get it. Bye! Oh God, I need to go to bed.